Hey guys, welcome. Welcome to Business Conversations with Keisha, where we have business conversations that matter. And today with me, I have my lovely guest, Mrs. Kim King, and she is a marketing professor and expert. She earned her undergraduate degree from the University of Alabama in Business and Commerce. She also has a master's from Florida State University in digital marketing and mass communication. She is also certified in video production. She, again, is currently a marketing professor at the University of West Alabama. She also owns her own firm, you guys. She owns KikuaConsulting.com. That's KikuaConsulting.com, her own marketing firm. So we'll get the backstory for that in just a second. But her firm is a place where she can handle all of your business, marketing, and public relations needs. Okay, so her business sense is so vast. I think we're just going to break it down into segments. So today we're going to focus on just marketing today, and then so hopefully we'll be able to have Kim back on where she can talk about the public relations side when it comes to business. But without further ado, I'll allow her to introduce herself. Hello, Miss Kim.
Hi, I love it. Hi, everyone. It's different being on the other side of this because usually I'm telling people how to get prepared for interviews.
Oh my goodness. Now you're the one being interviewed, right?
Yes, yes. I've only done the written articles, which I've also written some myself. So you pretty much did my whole intro, but I guess I'll tell you about the love of marketing. Ever since I was in middle school, I knew I wanted to do marketing. I was a very headstrong child. I was like, this is what I'm going to do, come hell or hot water. And that's what I meant. So in middle school with FBLA, I did marketing. I was FBLA president. I went into school doing it. That's where the minor in public relations came from. And I still wanted to get into it. However, my path didn't allow me to get a job. Well, give me a job outside of marketing once I got my degree. So I went back to school and I still couldn't get the job I wanted. So I was like, I'll start it. And so that's how it came about because people were saying, well, you know so much. Why don't you just do it yourself? Just do it yourself. I'm like, I don't know because no one wants to hire me. Because my vision was I'm going to go up the corporate ladder, be that CEO within the corporate space. Then I will come back and teach others, especially minorities, and saying, this is how you get into the field. This is what you do. And life had other plans.
Oh wow. Oh wow. And then just to say that you went to University of Alabama, their School of Business and Commerce, that has been one of the top business schools in the country for a really long time. So to say that you know exactly what you are doing, you definitely have been well trained in your area of expertise. So I wanted to ask you, like, we kind of hear the word marketing thrown around a little bit, but what exactly is a marketing consultant? And well, you tell us about your background as far as you've always wanted to be a marketer, but what exactly is a marketing consultant, and how does marketing consulting work for a small business?
So there are various aspects with marketing. You have traditional, you have grassroots, and you also have digital. So a marketing consultant would basically give you the blueprint of what your small business should do in order to garner brand awareness, more traffic. I would say it doesn't necessarily equals automatic sales because it's a funnel. So you have sales, you have marketing, you have advertising. And so people think, well, if you're marketing, then I must automatically have sales. That's not necessarily the case. Sales is a part of marketing and vice versa, but marketing is that research part. It's knowing your target audience, knowing your brand colors, your brand voice, and knowing how to reach the people that are your target marketing. So I always tell people it is a funnel. So it's a facet of many things, but the traditional part of the marketing is the things of what you see constantly. Take, for instance, when you walk into a grocery store, if you ever notice candy is at the aisle because those are quick grabs, something you can get last minute. That's all a part of marketing, of realizing where if we put certain stuff in certain areas of the store, it would grab people's attention. Think, for instance, with McDonald's and how they changed their advertising per country. However, they keep repeating that message, and they also go back to those target marketing parts, which is the focus groups, the surveys, and etc. So that part is more so of the marketing, but it goes into that sales, advertising, and everything else, which is where most people get confused.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Okay, so with that being said, when you mentioned McDonald's in the grocery store, what do you think makes marketing for small businesses different from those larger enterprises, such as a McDonald's or a Nike store or something like that?
Number one is budget.
Okay,
Number one is
okay.
budget, and number two is the knowledge. So a lot of times small businesses struggle with understanding the need for marketing. For instance, I've had people who only thought of marketing as, I'll just post on social media. But then when I asked the question of, well, where's your audience? Who are you trying to target? Well, everybody. You cannot target everyone. You cannot. You have to break it up into subgroups, which is why you see businesses focus on Black History Month or Hispanic Heritage Month. They break it down in those smaller groups, so that way they can target those individual groups, but it's still encompassing each one, and each message has to be tailored different. I think a lot of times in a small business, especially people who are starting out, people like to assume at times, I could do it all. I don't need a team. I could just watch YouTube all day. I can just do this. I such and such. My best friend down the street did it this way, and it made them do whatever. And in 3 months, they sales skyrocketed. However, that doesn't mean that it's still gonna work for your business. That doesn't mean that because you post it, people see it. There's still a strategy with all of that. So it actually can be very beneficial to small businesses, but people also have to give it time. Because I've also had people in the past who are like, I don't see nothing within 2 or 3 weeks. I don't see your use. Well, technically, that takes consistency and time. And on average, I tell people you have to give it at least 90 days to see the difference. And then now with marketing, I haven't even touched on this. So search engine optimization, there's all the analytics, and then also advertisement. So you see on social media now, they want you to pay for ads to even get some of your stuff even higher up. So I think people don't fully understand the importance of it and how much it can really help your business, especially if you're not doing it by yourself. Because a lot of times you have small businesses, and I'm guilty of it too. I was like, well, I'm vast in this and this. I could just do it myself. And then I got to a point where I burned out, and I had to ask myself, like, no, you can't do this. Get you some help. So I had to get help to help my own business. Like, for instance, I struggle with my logo. I've done logos for other people, no problem. But mine, I kept nitpicking to the point where I had to go tell somebody, I need your help. Please do this for me so that I can move forward.
Oh wow, that's so awesome. Just basically knowing when you need help and you
Yeah.
need to outsource it. That's awesome. So what is the first step? What is the first step when you're working with a small business to like develop a marketing strategy? What is usually the first step? Because I heard you say earlier when they get an audience, they think they targeting everybody. So what is and that comes to my mind, but what is the first step that you take when working with a small business to develop a strategy?
So now that I have done trial and error, I give them a questionnaire.
Okay.
It's a pretty thorough questionnaire, but not really. Because if you've ever been in grad school, it could be a lot worse. So I say that to say, well, I ask them, what is your target market? And if your answer is everyone, oh, we got to go all the way back to the beginning. Because I always ask people these certain questions. So my first top 3 questions are, who is your target audience? What are your brand colors? And what is your brand voice? And usually people are like, I've never thought about that. I'm like, well, before you can talk to me, you need to think about that, because this is going to help with consistency, which goes into your branding as well. So I start there. And then I also sit down with people and I ask them, what are they trying to accomplish? Because I have this personality of, okay, I'm thinking big. You want to expand it. You want to do this. I had to learn, no, everybody don't think like that. So some people just want to be successful within their own city. Some people actually want their business to grow. So those are different marketing strategies. And then also it's, well, what are you trying to get out of it? So are you trying to get that brand awareness? Are you trying to get more sales? Are you trying to get more foot traffic? Are you trying to draw more traffic to your website? So all of that is the main questions I ask first. And usually, be honest, most people get overwhelmed and I don't hear from them for a while. And then they come back.
Yeah. It can be. It really can be overwhelming because running a business is just a lot anyway.
Yep.
And so I talked with one of my mentors, and she is an accountant, and she said that there are so many different aspects to business, and people try to do it all, and they end up burning out, not realizing they need to get help in all of these different areas. So that's why I wanted you to come on so badly, because I got the accountant to come on, and so like now I have the marketer, and so it's just like getting those different elements of business to help these small businesses to be able to grow. So can you share a story that you can think of and where you had to help a small business to achieve significant growth through marketing? With limited like names and all that kind of stuff, but do you?
Yeah, I won't do names because here's the ironic thing. So I got to tell, this is for a testament for business owners. Always have a contract in place because I have
Ooh,
helped
wow.
businesses expand.
Okay.
Do I have the portfolio to show it? Not necessarily, because I've had people take what I've done, give it to someone else, or take what I've done and deleted all of it. So, yes.
Wow.
So that is on for a business side. Always have your contracts and have your paperwork in order. But I will say with one group that I'm working with right now, I've literally, with the help of marketing, his clientele has grown over about 50% right now in the last 2 months, just from little things of saying, hey, consider this for your consistency, because people forget about consistency. You can't have your logo look one way on a website and then the business card look something different. So, and then like, what is your target area? So I've been able to help him get in those rooms with his target audience, which has helped him grow his clientele.
That's good. So how important is a logo? Because I know some businesses, they legit do not have logos. Like, how important is branding for a business?
If you want people to recognize you, it's very important. I think those are one of those intrinsic values where you can't put a number on it. You can't quantify it. However, McDonald's is trademark, Apple is trademark, Google, you see those automatically. They're one of the top noticeable brands because it's consistent and you always know. And when they do change, it's not a high significant of change. Coca-Cola, think about all those brands that you see all the time. And we haven't even gotten to the different umbrellas because they 5, 6 companies own all the brands right now. But that's a whole other conversation. But think about how significant and easy it is. So I always tell people, keep it simple with the logos because it has to be recognizable. And if you're going to grow, it needs to be recognizable. Now, for one of my businesses, I never did a logo because I wanted to be incognito, because that business put me in rooms with 6 figures plus. And if you were able to figure out who I was before I walked into the room, that could have been to my detriment as far as signing that deal.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I'm gonna have to get that story offline.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, let me ask you this. What do you believe is the most important element in creating a marketing plan that delivers results for the small business owners?
Research. You have to do the research.
Okay.
A lot of times businesses just start. I mean, I get it, start out with a hustle. Like, I just want to get this quick money. I just want to get it. But if you want to be a legitimate business, like you mentioned, you have the accounting. You got to make sure your ducks in a row, because if you audit it, you got to be able to have those transactions. Yeah, you may be upset that now over $600 in Cash App is a problem, but you need to have that for legal purposes. So you have to do your research, because in order to grow, you have to know what clients want, because the pitfalls sometimes is not knowing your target audience. You raise your prices too quickly. Then what happens is
Mm-hmm.
you lose your customer base. Or you decide that I'm just going to switch up the name and you didn't tell anyone. So now no one recognizes your brand. What happens if, say, for instance, social media goes down again? What other ways are you going to reach your client? Because you still have email marketing. We never touched on email marketing. Like, there's so many different avenues. So you have to have different funnels to reach them, and you have to do your research to know where those people are and what they like to see.
Okay. All right. So, in knowing what they like to see, I want to move over to digital marketing for a second. With digital marketing being such a major focus, because as we all can see, we're the world is changing from like a industrial age or era to a digital era. And so, with digital marketing being such a major focus today, how do you guide some of the small businesses that you consult to effectively leverage their online platforms or the platforms that they use?
That starts with their mission. And
Okay.
so once I get that part of that questionnaire that I give out, then we align that from there. I've cleared people's social media accounts. Like, no, that's not what their mission is. We're clearing it out. We're starting over.
Okay.
Literally have started people's social medias over. And then also knowing when to post, because the thing with algorithms, they're always changing. And then we haven't talked about bots. And Chat GPT is not your friend like people think it is, because then you run into copyright issues if you do not manipulate things. Same thing with Canva. If you don't manipulate the logos enough and certain things, you do not own the rights to those products.
Wow. That's something new. Never knew that.
Yes, so it's in my marketing groups. We talk about it all the time. So I used to, for instance, I used to do graphic design on Adobe and all of that, because you have to manipulate. I still can. I've decided that that's not something I really want to do all the time. But people go on Canva like, oh, I just did Canva, but you didn't manipulate enough. So technically, yes, you can use it as your advertising, marketing, and branding. However, if you expand to a certain level, you can no longer really use that, because if someone really wanted to come after you because that is their intellectual work, they could. Which is, I think, for the old school people, I'll put it like this: Getty Images. When we used to go and download the
Oh
images, and you
yeah,
had to
yeah.
pay for certain ones, you were paying for the copyright and the usage, the fair use right.
Oh wow. Now I've heard that definitely with Chat GPT, but I had no idea with Canva. I kind of that kind of makes sense. I've seen businesses, no lie. I've seen businesses like brick and mortar businesses with a full Canva logo and everything. And I'm just like, ooh, like people out here using Canva. I mean, I never knew that, but I'm just like, people out here using Canva like that. You know what I mean? So
Because
that's
they don't know.
okay. Yeah, that's very helpful to know. So in your opinion, which digital platforms do you believe small business should prioritize to get the most value for their marketing efforts? I think we talked about this like last week sometime, but just for the people.
It really depends. It
Mm-hmm.
really goes back to that target audience, because if we're going to talk about Facebook, that is for the boomers up. Do millennials use it, but not as much? Do the zennials use it? No, that's for old people, is what they're saying. Instagram is an avenue, but now people are starting to get away from that, because that falls on the meta. And as we know, with the recent changes to everything, people are bagging away. And then also how they mentally feel from social media. And then we talking Snapchat, that can be utilized, but then some people don't use that. To X, I mean, formerly known as Twitter. Like I said, with the recent things going on nationally, people are backing away with that. So you have Lemonade, you have Threads, you have this other platform. what is the other ones I've learned? It's quite a few other ones. And by platforms, we don't even just mean social media. You still have Google, that's the SEO. You can pay for ranking. You can pay for advertising on LinkedIn, on Pinterest. So it really depends on the business. Is it good to try to cover more than one? Yes, but if your sole clientele is on Facebook and that's what's making the most revenue for you, then use Facebook. Well, Meta, to use the correct term. It's Meta because I have to specify this too. Meta includes Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. So that is officially who they are. And Google has changed their legal name to, what is it now? I think Alphabet.
Alphabet.
Alphabet. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So it's always changing.
Oh, wow. Okay. Ooh, that was pretty steep. Okay. Now, how do you, as a marketing consultant, how do you balance short-term marketing goals like promotions with long-term strategies like brand building in digital marketing?
That depends on the client.
Okay.
So the client tells me what they need. And that's why my packaging, you can't really set prices all the time because everyone needs is different. So
Yeah.
I may have someone say, hey, I just need an updated branding. And I'm like, okay, so do you know what colors you want? Then I start saying color codes. Like, oh, what is that? Never mind. Let me just know what colors, and then we could go from there. And that's just some simple one where it could just update a logo. So that's something different than I need a 6-month, 12-month strategy. And then it's also different from if you want me to actually do the work, because consulting is me just telling you. If you want me to actually do it, that's another price. Because now we're talking about my time. And I will say this caveat that a lot of people confused with consulting. And I had to learn this in one of my pitfalls. That can be a whole conversation within itself. Was I don't work for you. I work with you. And so a lot of times people try to manipulate my time and say, well, I'm paying you to consult, so you should be available all the time. That's not how that works at all. Because if I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to pause, but I'm not. I'm going to say what I got to say. What I will say is minorities in certain positions get a harder time than most counterparts, especially as a Black woman. Mm-hmm. And if we're going to talk about the marketing field, it is white dominated. Okay. And by white dominated is white woman dominated, with the C-suite being white men. Of course, I have in my 10-year of teaching have trained my students to go make more money than me and go to the jobs that I thought that I would have had out of college.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's pretty much, yeah. I know that one.
So I will say it really depends on what people are trying to accomplish. And also, I tell people all the time, because I've also run into people who are hesitant of me because they've had someone before who they thought were doing a great job, and then they talk to me and they realize, oh, they didn't tell me none of this. Research your person. It's okay. Everyone is not a good fit. I won't take on every client, and every client shouldn't take on me.
Okay. Okay. And I think that's very important for small businesses to do, because sometimes people can like talk and then lure you in or whatever, and it's not probably what you thought it was or should have been or what have you. So I think that's a good suggestion. Good suggestion is to, research your person. But I will say this in response to what you said, that about sometimes people want to manipulate your time. And one thing I have learned is that business acumen is definitely necessary when you're talking about wanting to grow your business and wanting to hire other people to help you grow your business. I can't reach out to you and say, Kim, I want you to help me with my business if I am not going to pay you what you are worth. And also I think that sometimes we can have a level of comfortability with the person that we feel this need to, well, can I get a discount, or can I do this, or can I do that? That's, I'm one of those people, and I used to, and I know what you mean when you said earlier about you have helped people grow. When I tell you I have helped a lot of people to write their books and get published and go off and sell way more books than me and get speaking engagements and this type of thing. However, I am very mindful now of my time. And so when somebody comes to you and say, hey, Kim, I want to hire you, I think it's only fair that they are willing to spend the money that you are charging for your knowledge, because you have a wealth of knowledge. Not to even mention, again, you have went to two of the top schools in our region, business schools in our region, right? So they have to pay you for your knowledge, your time, your skill set, all of those things. And we have to get away from this notion where we want to buy what we want, but we want to beg for what we need. You know what I'm saying? So if you know that it is your business that you want to grow, you have to be willing to pay people and let it be an investment for your business, and know that this is to grow your business. Like, this is not a hunger hookup type of situation. Like, they need to be okay with paying you for the wealth of knowledge that you have gone out to get. If they don't want to get the research, they need to hire somebody who has done the research. You know what I'm saying? And be okay with it. Because this is for to benefit them and to help their business grow and to help them meet their bottom line. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because so often people try to, I don't like the word get over, but we like to try to shortchange the other person. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And your business, your life, your goals, whatever it is you want, is not going to work when you out here trying to shortchange people. I'm just saying. Just side note. Okay. All right. Moving right along. So, what advice do you have? This is one of my favorite questions. What advice do you have for small businesses that are trying to manage social media marketing on their own? Because so often we look at a video, or we may take what you say here and be like, oh, I can take this and I can do it, but it don't turn out sometimes the way, you know what I mean? Like, the implementation of it is just totally opposite. And so what advice do you have for small businesses who are trying to manage social media marketing on their own?
It's still a very complex thing, because bigger companies have one person, or have a group of people who literally take on one social media account. You have another area that just simply does the content. You have another area that does copywriting. So, and I still haven't touched on all the levels. What I will say is some free advice that I am willing to give out to people: invest in a scheduler. Most people don't even know what that is. So what that is you develop the content, and you go on a scheduler and tell it what time, and it'll track your analytics as well as your reach. That's another your reach is how many people see it, how many people interact with it, and then you can slowly build consistent content from there. What I will also say is, it as something I felt victim of, it doesn't have to be perfect.
That's powerful.
It doesn't have to be perfect. So sometimes I look at stuff, I'm like, oh, how did they get away with that? Some misspellings, some buttons small, this, and the third. And I have to check myself. But they did something. What did you do today? You're nitpicking, but they did something. Regardless of whether you know as a marketer you agree with it, they did something. So in the beginning stages, I would say invest in a scheduler and just do something. And if you don't know what your brand and all that stuff is yet, still be consistent with the content that you're putting out, and also make it legible and easy to understand. And I say that because a lot of times I see flyers, they're so busy. They're like neon bright colors. People forget about people who have like epilepsy, seizures, or colorblind. That's not, like I said, that ADA and all that is a whole nother thing. But people forget that. They're like, oh, well, so I just, I'm like, no, keep it simple. That KISS method, like they teach you business, keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple, literally, because you need a date, a time, a location, and whatever the business name. You don't need to overcrowd it with a bunch of people on it. You don't have to do all of that. Keep it simple, because one thing I hate to do is see a flyer and I'm like, okay, I want to go look at that, but you don't have a date, or you don't have a price, or the link doesn't work. And I'm guilty of my links not working too, because things are always changing. I don't always have time to check everything. But if you're going to do that, make sure people can get to the information easily.
Absolutely. I am definitely one of those people, like, oh my goodness. One, the perfectionist in me that has a problem. And then two, I don't like busy flyers either. I don't like those loud colors. When I tell you, it gives me a headache, the really, really bright colors, and when people use fonts that our eyes aren't familiar with. And yeah, so I definitely can see that. So how can small businesses build and maintain strong customer relationships through marketing?
So, like I said, that goes into that funnel, because the end goal is sales, and sales is either the owner or the salesperson. So you can have the right marketing structure, but you can't close the deal. So they have to all be cohesive. Let's take, for instance, Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is not the best chicken, but they provide great customer service by being respectable as much as they possibly can, as opposed to the competitors. So they realize that people like efficiency and they like politeness. They use that and they elevated themselves. Even when their revenue's dropping, you still have that loyal customer who will still go to Chick-fil-A over anywhere else, based on the idea of this is superior. I'll give you another example for people who are older. If they can remember Apple when they first came out, what did people first think of Apple? It's the cool tech. It's so much better than Google, Android, all those things, because that was the branding and the marketing. It was like you were somebody if you were able to afford Apple. Yep. And you were lesser if you couldn't.
Yep.
And then after the genius passed away, it kind of like, but hey, I say that as to say that you have to be conscious of all levels, because you can have great marketing, branding, advertising, but then the sales is terrible, or the back end is terrible, the return is terrible, because you also have to be able to deal with that negative that comes along with it. So you have to be able to pivot to what may work this year for your marketing. Say, for instance, I'll give an example. Say, for instance, using Facebook might work this year, but next year you might have to get on TikTok, which we all know that TikTok is actually making more than Meta right now, but that's another conversation. But another year from now, it could be another person, another platform, another thing. So you do what you're comfortable with, but also be uncomfortable. And I know that sounds like an oxymoron. It's when you're starting now, do what you can do, and then be open to what's outside of your knowledge scope or outside of the box to gain additional recognition, because it costs more money to get a new customer than it is to retain an old one. But you also can't forget about your loyal customers. I think a lot of times, for example, when businesses say, I'll take for instance COVID, a lot of things went up. Now, quotations, because a lot of businesses use that as a way of saying we're going to go up on prices, but you kept going on with prices every 6 months. That was no longer COVID, because the studies have shown that the effects of COVID, as far as pricing, have worn off within 2 years. But because of capitalists, that was the reason why. And then businesses jumped on that bandwagon saying, oh, it's this and this and this. Now with the tariffs, that makes sense. However, if your prices become too high, you alienate your customer base. And if you alienate your customer base, you're still not getting revenue, which is why we see so many businesses closing. So on that aspect, if we're going to go back to Chick-fil-A, if you're going to go up on price, then you need to have that superior customer service. You need to have that niche that people can't compete with to justify the pricing. I can give another example. Lululemon. Them leggings, they're going to probably get me if they hear this. These are my opinions and my opinions only. Those leggings are basic to me.
Yeah. I've heard that from several people. Yeah.
They are basic, but they charge upwards to $100 and some, and people pay them for whatever reason that they've gotten with their research. They realize a certain area of the market enjoys wearing them and feeling like they're superior. So small businesses have to be able to understand their customer base, and I say audience because it's interchangeable, and knowing that customer relationship is important, but it's not always the end all be all, because everyone is not always right when they're your customer. They're not. And so I think it's having that balance and having that funnel all coexist. So if you do get a negative review, how do you counteract that? How do you fix that? If you do get someone who wants to return your product, did you account for that in your budget? Or do you have an extra storage in your account to where you can account for that? Because that's going to happen. That's where that whole funnel of having everything cohesive, that's your back end, your contracts, that's your return policy, that's all of those different things that help make that business efficient and make it easier for customers, because those people who want to utilize your services or utilize your products will continue to utilize it, because people think that, well, this one person said da 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 about my business and it wasn't a good fit. That doesn't mean that 5 more won't come if you handle that negative response correctly.
And I think that's very important too, because sometimes we can have something really good or a great idea, a great product or what have you, and we hit that snag in the road and we just throw in the towel and want to give up quick, and we really just need to dust ourselves off, learn from it, grow from it, and keep it moving. And understand, okay, there are more people out there that may want to invest in your product or your services. So thank you so much for that. Speaking of niche, what strategies does Kikua Consulting use to help small businesses stand out from competitors in their local or niche markets?
For me, I would say what is my shining star is I actually get to know my clients' needs. Because when I talk to a lot of people, they say I've talked to this business guru, or I watched these videos, I bought these classes, I've done all these things, but no one has ever sat down with them to say, hey, what does your LLC look like? Have you thought about that brand voice? Have you thought about how often you want to post? Have you thought about how you want to grow? Do you want a brick and mortar? Have you thought about the cost? And that's why people say they get overwhelmed with me. And so what I like to do is specialize based on what they need in that personality of that brand, because I try to truly understand what they're trying to do. But I've also learned from my experiences that sometimes it's just not a good fit. And it doesn't matter. And I will say this as a caveat to a lot of people: don't think because you talk to a person and they give you the tools that means that you're going to be able to run with it and you're going to soar because you got all the information. What is someone's purpose is different than someone's just arrival. And I say about arrival is someone who's just using it as a tool to make money, because I've had people say all the time, I have a business. And so when I sit down and talk to them, I have to tell them, you really don't have a business. You have a hobby.
Yes.
And so with that, you don't need consulting from me. You need to just keep doing what you're doing and leave me alone. But like I said, I try to really understand people because I don't want to waste people money and I don't want to waste their time, which means you're going to waste my time. And in the growing pains of being a business owner, I wasted a lot of time with people I should have let go, and they should have let me go because it just was not a good fit.
Yeah. Smart. Okay. So how can small businesses refine their brand messaging to better connect with their ideal customers?
First, people need to know who their ideal customer is. Like, that's number one. I'm
Yeah.
glad you said that. A lot of people don't even know what their ideal customer is. Okay, I see you.
Yeah. Some people don't.
I know, I'm just saying the fact
They
that you even
they
know
they
that.
say everybody they customer. Most people like everybody my customer.
I know the fact that you know that means you understand the pain. Because a lot of times people don't understand there's an ideal, there's a target, there's a primary, there's a secondary. So the branding is once you decide on who your ideal customer is, that's also where that research come in. Because when I tell people what are the demographics of that person, let's say for instance, you tell me your ideal customer is someone who's athletic. What does that mean? They're like, what do you mean? What does it mean? It means athletic. No. What is their age group? What is their annual income? What is their family lifestyle? What do they like to do for fun? And they're like, what? I was like, exactly. You have not specified your ideal customer until you sat down and thought about the attributes of them.
Wow.
Nike's slogan is just do it. Who do you typically see in Nike commercials?
Athlete.
That athlete with a certain build and a certain brand that fits their niche at that moment. So say for instance, now that they started expanding for body positivity and different things, they have a certain look still to them. The typical customer, however, doesn't necessarily look like that. But that branding works even so. And then also supply and demand. So I say that brand messaging, you have to understand your ideal customer and then go from there. Because if your ideal customer is a 20-some-year-old and you over here saying, well, I got a billboard, and it's in, I don't even go to the font name because that confuse some people. But I'm going to say the curly font.
Or even cursive, because the young people don't know cursive.
That
Particularly
too.
the younger generation.
If you got that on a billboard and you're wondering why no one is calling you because that doesn't fit them. And so you have to know where people are. Or if you say, well, my daughter, 16, is doing it. Once again, what does that mean? So businesses need to be aware of who their ideal customer actually is, and then also try to cater some of their ideas towards that actual group. And if you don't know, then ask someone that can help you narrow it down, because when it's not narrowed down, you get lost in the messaging. And so you can't really tailor your messaging because you don't know who is seeing that messaging.
Absolutely. One question that I would like to incorporate in here is, what are some of the biggest challenges small business face when it comes to marketing, and how can they overcome them?
This is my favorite because I started a series and I gotta get back to it. I have
You started a series on your what's your Instagram?
No, my TikTok.
Okay.
I had started a series. I was gonna find the paper because the Lord knew. I was gonna see if I could find it. The Lord knew. It was the pitfalls of business owners, and it was the main thing with marketing. See, this is how long ago I wrote it. And it was the top 10 myths of marketing, as well as I'll tell you what the top 10 myths, and I'm gonna go to the downfall. So what I wrote down was, I don't need marketing. Everyone is my target market. Marketing is just posting online. Marketing is sales. I don't need a marketer. Research isn't necessary. Consistency isn't necessary. I want results now. I don't need an online presence. Marketing is a waste of money. So that's what started my series that I'm gonna get back to, because I have more sheets. That's what I said about I had to outsource and get some help myself. Which is funny. I love this question actually, because businesses mess up when, like I mentioned before, where they give it to the family member. They're like, well, they have a lot of followers. Followers doesn't equal revenue. And Meta is actually changing their algorithms yet again to where it's not even about the number of followers anymore. It's about the number of engagement.
Yep.
And that's a ratio to your actual followers versus the bots that follow you or the ones people pay for. Because a lot of times people pay for followers and they don't want to admit it, but that's another topic. But that's number one is don't associate followers with revenue. Because people like to will sometimes mess up and buy an influencer, pay for an influencer, but they don't receive a return on investment. Because one, you didn't research the influencer, and two, who actually follows them isn't your target market. Also, with marketing, there are a lot of helpful tips online, but be wary of the information you're receiving. Because, like as I mentioned before, what works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Also, be leery of paying for classes to get marketing 101. Because there are a lot of free resources out there that you can get until you can afford an actual marketer, because it is a vast amount of knowledge to have to take in, retain, and do the training technology. But there are a lot of free resources that you can utilize. There are free marketing classes. There are free digital marketing classes. They'll hit the basics. They won't necessarily go hands-on with you, but there are a lot through Wells Fargo, who was Verizon, these other big companies who noticed that.
I think CNBC does some
Yes.
type of marketing class too. Yeah.
Yes, all of those places do that. So look for it and see what you can do. Because if you can't afford a marketer, then see what you can do on your own. But most of the time, people don't want to read.
You are absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct. Now you preaching now. Okay, so can you share a time when Kikua Consulting had to pivot a marketing strategy for a client, and what was the outcome?
Before I even start with the client, let me start with myself.
Okay.
Kikua had to pivot from the original name of KDK Marketing Group because I couldn't get a trademark.
Okay. So, give us the history on that.
So KDK Marketing Group started in 2019 after I had previously mentioned that people were asking me, like, why don't you start your own? You're so good at it, you know what you're talking about. So I did. And I spent 2 years trying to get my trademark. I spent a few $1,000s. And what the trademark attorney got stuck on was the KDK, because there's a KDK Entertainment in another state that is not being utilized. But because it's KDK, they thought that it would cause confusion between my name and their name. So I said, forget it. I called up my friend and said, you know, I'm so frustrated. I'm sick of this. She's like, I love your name. I said, I love it too. But I got to pivot because I'm not thinking small. I believe in ownership. And the best way to ownership is to have your paperwork in order. Because that way, if anyone uses my name, once it's trademarked, I can now sue you for money. And that's a lot. And that people don't know that, but that's how a lot of big companies get their money. Like, such as Disney. They sue people who utilize their likeness or their name, and if it wasn't given consent. So that's one. So for instance, I'll take for instance a client that taught me a lot of lessons, and I mean lessons for my own business, because me and that client, we should have parted ways a long time ago before I actually ended. Yeah. They had this one idea for their business, and I'm a straightforward person. I'm a straight shooter. The UA taught us cut out that fluff. So I'm a straight shooter. So you imagine this little person telling you, no one knows you. That's what I told him. No one knows you. So why are you doing all of these things? And you're supposed to be a wellness brand. And that person said to me, I know what I'm doing. I said, no, you don't. No, you don't. Because you haven't considered this. And so I spent a lot of time helping them pivot and to actually build the brand. And because they were thinking small scale. By small scale, I mean like this t-shirts. But if you're going to be a wellness brand, I was saying you should focus more on that athletic piece. But this particular client didn't know women's sizing. Didn't even consider it. I said that would never work on a woman's body. So that was a pivot. I got plenty of stories with this one client, but I'm gonna leave it at that when they had to pivot and focus more on athleisure. Because it started as a t-shirt idea, but it ran into an athleisure brand. So that was one of the pivots.
Okay. Okay. So I want to go a little bit in depth about something you said uh, in your last statement about trademarking and how important is trademarking, or is that something you even need as a business owner?
You don't necessarily need it depending on what you're trying to do with your business. Some people never consider trademarking, and some people don't care about it because they're okay with just having protection in their state. I want protection nationally because even globally, you have to pay, depending on what did I research? Let me not misquote myself. So I ended up realizing that I get a trademark, it would protect me nationally, maybe not necessarily globally, because globally has different rules. So that's when you need that attorney. But I think bigger scale. Now, where Kikua is going to go, I don't know. I would love to get to a point where I can sell it, collect my check, and let somebody else work it. Yeah. But regardless, I want to own something. And it's not enough for me to just have the business. I want to really own the business because, like I said, when you think about these larger companies, these corporations rather, they have a trademark. They have these other things. And so if you start on a small scale and go ahead and protect yourself, that's less money for you in the long run. But if you're not trying to expand past, let's say, just your city, then you don't necessarily need it, but it don't hurt to have it if you can. Because if you find out someone has the same name, then technically you can't get it. Because there's a lot of protections that come along with it. That's why most celebrities name their children these different names so that they can use that name to do merch, likeness, and other things. Which is why people wonder why, oh, how do you have this name like Apple and stuff? That's intentional for trademarking and copyright purposes.
Okay, that makes sense. And it's funny you say that because I was looking, I love watching CNBC Money and Mad Money and Fast Money. I like to learn about money because I really don't have a whole lot of it. So I want to learn how to get it one day. So I was looking at CNBC the other day and I had no idea that Apple and a lot of these, even car companies, different manufacturers and all this kind of stuff, they own their names. They have patents on this stuff, but they don't actually build this stuff.
Nope.
They don't build it, but they make this mass amount of money because they own their trademark, they own their patent. And I was like, so you mean to tell me?
And you can license.
Yeah. So you mean to tell me these people like mega super rich because they own the name and they got the marketing just right. And so we have all of these products that are coming in from over here and we paying $1,000 for phones, but when they send them over there, they might technically only pay a few dollars to make them, but they own the right to their name. And I'm like, why can't these people make this particular product, but they own it? They can't, they can't make an Apple or they can't make this particular car because they own their trademark or they own their patent to their creation. They own their names. And so I'm just like, wow, I can't believe these people are, if that ain't a scam, it ain't no scam. That's a hustle.
I mean, anybody.
That's genius.
Anybody that thinks large would do the same. Same thing with your name. You can go trademark your name today if it's not already taken.
Ooh.
It's just a matter of whether they approve you or not. It's whoever gets it in first.
That's true. That's true.
So I tell people, if you even think that you're going to be in a public spotlight just a little, and your name isn't so common, file a trademark. File a trademark for the name, a phrase. A phrase. If you came up with a new color today, which I don't think is possible, you can trademark that, and you can patent systems. You can patent one part of a system, and people will have to pay you. That's residual income.
It is residual income. It really is. Oh wow! Thanks so much for that tidbit of information. That reminded me of something I seen the other day. Okay, so how do you help small businesses get the most out of their marketing budgets without overspending? Without overspending.
Laugh because I was coming out. They had no budget, so it was off a zero.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? I've been there, so I can't.
I'm gonna be honest. I literally only had people that could afford me to make the website, and they had to go from there. I had people who could only afford me to write their marketing strategy. So I was in that grind mode of feeling like I wasn't good enough. So I was just getting it, and I was working with whatever they gave me. And I say that as someone who was like, I have to prove to people, because if I couldn't get the job, then I got to show it. Because people are like, where's your portfolio? I don't have a portfolio. But the reality is I've always had a portfolio. If it came down to it, it was the fact of I was so scared of feeling like I was taking advantage of people. I didn't recognize the ones who were taking advantage of me. Oh, but now I charge my worth. So I tell people now, if you can't afford what you're asking for, there's nothing to start. But I was very willing to work with anyone's budget. I'll tell people realistically, do you just want the stuff to be built? Are you want to put this money towards advertising? Because you can do a couple of dollars a day towards advertising to help get all those things that I mentioned previously. Or do you just want someone to help you work on things? So usually what happens is people pay me in segments.
Okay.
I haven't reached the client yet that it will just pay me straight up yet. I said yet, but it's coming.
Oh, absolutely.
Who would just pay me, so they pay me in segments. So my process with a client now, it could be 6 months plus when it really only required maybe 2 months of my time. But because they pay me in segments based on what they can afford, that's why sometimes the duration is longer. But I will say I've had 2 clients in the past year or so who have seen substantial increase in revenue off of the little things that I told them to do.
Awesome. That's good.